Hi, this is Mr. T with another sheet metal ductwork fabrication. Today we're going to do an Ogee offset. So this is a piece of ductwork we would have to make if we have to go up, around, down, whatever the case might be to get around an obstruction in our ductwork. So our piece is already cut the size. We got 2 pieces for our cheeks and 2 pieces for our wrappers or heel and throat. We're going to start with the cheeks. They are 6.5 by 10. When we're doing this project, we actually have to make a left and a right. We're going to lay them out exactly the same way. We'll form them different to make our left and the right after. I'll explain that when we get there. So with any layout, we're going to start in the bottom left-hand corner. We're going to work our way left to right, bottom to top. The unique thing about Ogee offsets is our dimensioning. So on the top here, I have 1.5 inches on the left, 1 7/8 inches on the right. On an Ogee offset, to make sure we stay parallel through this whole piece for airflow, those dimensions are actually going to flip. They're going to invert and flip for the bottom. So, starting from the bottom left, my first dimension up is 1/4, and then my dimension from the right, I have 1/2 inch and 1 inch. So I'm going to mark those using my scratch gauge. I have 1/4 on the bottom, 1/2, 1 inch on the right. Excuse me, on the left. And I'm going to do that on both pieces. So I have my first intersection that I need. So again, if at the top is 1.5 and 1 7/8, the measurements on the bottom are going to flip. So my 1 7/8 is going to be my first dimension from the left. And again, I'm going to do that on both pieces. So the next thing I have to do is create my 2-inch offset. We're offsetting our ductwork 2 inches to go around an obstruction of some sort. So I'm going to mark my 2-inch dimension, and that is from the 1/4 inch line. So once I do that, I'm going to take my combination square, draw a little bit of a line on both those intersections. So the next thing I have to do before I can mark my 1.5, because remember we got 1.5 here, that dimension is going to flip to down here. Before I do that, I'm going to add my 1/2 and my 1 again on the right side. So good practice. While you're doing one piece, do the same exact step to the other piece. Now I have my 1.5 dimension here. Now to create my angle line, I just go intersection to intersection using my steel rule. Create my bottom shape. So that puts me here. So now our ductwork is 4 inches wide, so I got to measure 4 inches. So this 4 inches here is also 4 inches here. So I'm going to measure my 4, put a mark. Measure my 4, and mark. So again, whatever I'm doing on one piece, I'm doing the same exact thing to the other piece. Draw a little bit of a line. And if I did it right and sheared my piece right, I should have my 1/4 inch, which will be for the Pittsburgh return. on the top of both pieces. So now I have to do my dimensions again for my offset. I have 1.5 inches, 1 inch and 7/8. And again, I just have to connect my intersections. So the last thing I have to do is my 1/4 inch parallels. That is all my return flanges for Pittsburgh lock. So we want to hold the rule so it's pretty much parallel to our piece, or excuse me, parallel to our line. So we're going to get a true 1/4 inch parallel. Again, everything I just created on this piece, I'm going to copy that on my other piece. So again, good work practice. If I have 2 pieces to do, 10 pieces to do, whatever the case might be, I'm doing all the same step to each piece. Helps you not to miss a step, miss a dimension, whatever the case might be. So I have my basic shape on both pieces. Last, I just have to add my angles on the outside and my angles to my flanges. All we have to do is basically connect intersection to intersection. And I'm going to do my 45-degree angles. We're using a 45-degree, depending on what we're using for ductwork connection, is going to determine what these angles and notches might be, whether we're using slip and drive cleats or TDC, something like that. For demonstration, we're doing it as if we were using slip and drive cleats. So that completes my two. I should be able to take these pieces, put them on top of each other, and all my lines should line up, which they do, so my cheeks are complete. Next, I'm going to lay out the wrappers. Again, I'm going to start in the bottom left, work my way left to right. Starting from the bottom, I have my Pittsburgh lock, which is 1 inch. Again, I have the 1/2 one on the left and the right, and I have a 1 inch Pittsburgh lock on the top. So having already checked my pieces and they are well within a 1/16 of an inch, I'm going to cheat a little bit and mark my left and right sides and my top and bottom. So now all that leaves me is my 1 7/8, again from my 1 inch line. I should have 5 1/16 from line to line, and how we get that dimension is whatever your slant line dimension would be on your Ogee offset transfers to your wrapper or heel and throw. So my first dimension is 1 7/8, and then I have 5 1/16, which should leave me 1 1/2 inches, which it does. So again, 1 7/8, 5 1/16, leaves 1 1/2. Use my combination square, I'll just continue that line. A reminder, we're using Sharpie, so don't put your combination square right on your dimension. It should be slightly off of it. So when you draw your Sharpie line, basically your dimension mark disappears. Last, I just have to add my angles and notches for Pittsburgh lock. Our dimension is going to be 3/8 of an inch from the outside to the corner of our 45-degree notch. So from the outside of the piece, I'm going to measure 3/8, and that's the same on both sides. It's from the outside in. Here's the paper. If you get okay, so I have my 3/8 dimensions marked, and we're going to use 45-degree angles again. If you had double cut snips or notch snips, you wouldn't have to mark the angles, but for demonstration purposes, I'm going to use my protractor and mark all my angles. And again, we're using 45. So I'm going to mark all my angles that I can one way on both pieces, then I'll flip my protractor and mark the opposite angle. So work my way around the piece. That's all the angles I can do that way. Flip my protractor 45 degrees to the opposite side and finish all my angles. And again, I should be able to take my two pieces now, line them up, make sure I got the right, left, and right, line them up, and everything should line up. And again, they do. So now I have to do all my notching. They're all straight cut, so you can use any type of aviation snip. So first thing I'm going to do is just notch out all my corners. I'm putting the end of the snip to the end of where my cut is so I don't overcut my notching. Now I'll do all my angle cutting. On our Pittsburgh lock locations, we not only want to notch our angles out, but we're also going to slice from our notch to our Pittsburgh lock line, our 1-inch dimension in our case. That's so later on when we bend it, we don't have any kinking or binding in the corner, so we have a nice open Pittsburgh lock to assemble our pieces. And again, I'll just continue, do the same thing with my other piece. And again, if you had double cut snips, notching snips, you just do your notch on that line. And then slice. So those are my two wrappers for heel and throat. Now I have to notch out my cheeks. When I cut these, we missed a couple of lines, which is why it's important to match up your pieces. When we cut these, we could do it a couple of different ways. We could use right and left hand snips, right, left. Or we could use rights or lefts, cut to our inch section, turn our snips and cut it out. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to cut down the line to my inch section, and then as I cut, I'm going to turn the corner. Cut it out in one piece. We'll do the same thing to my other piece. So to show you in comparison, if I did it, if this was a large Ogee offset or odd dimension, I could use my right hand snips or left cut from one side and my left hand snips or right cut from the other side. And cut it out that way. Now again, I just have to finish my notching and angle cuts. So just like I did on the cheeks, on the wrappers, on the cheeks, I'm going to get rid of the corners first. Do my angles. Here we have to slice our inch section, and on this side there's just going to be a slight open notch. So again, a slice, open notch. I'm going to do the same exact thing to my other piece. Okay, so all my pieces are notched up. The next step will be forming. So right now these pieces are identical, but I need them to be a left and a right. So all we're going to do is we're going to label this piece up. We're going to bend our quarter-inch dimensions up. This one we're going to bend down. That will make me my left and right. We could have laid these out as opposites, but because they're a simple symmetrical shape, we're just going to bend it up and then down. My wrappers are heel and throat. I have my Pittsburgh lock on both sides, on the long side. And then I have these two bends. These two bends are what are going to form my wrappers. Both these pieces are going to be formed the same. Even though we have a top and a bottom, these pieces get formed the same. So if I put my pieces together like this bend is up, this bend is down. It's going to be about a 20-25 degree angle. But we'll form those after we do the cheek so we can match that bend to the exact angle. So that is layout, cutting and notching of our cheeks and wrappers. Okay, so next I just have to form my wrappers through the lock folding machine. So I'll put my gloves on, I'll put my safety glasses on. Again, safety first. Gonna make sure we keep it right up against the guide bar all the way through the machine. Pull the bar, run my piece through it. Let the machine do the rest. One piece two, got my Pittsburgh locks formed. Now I just have to do my bends. Okay, so continuing with our pieces, now we have to do all our forming. So what we're going to do is we're going to form one up and one down. So all that means is one we're going to form so our line is bent on our side where our lines are. The other one is going to be bent opposite. So basically, what I'm going to do is use the brake. I'm going to use the brake as kind of a clamp to bend my piece. If I just put in the brake and bend, it would actually bend straight across, and I'd have to straighten that out. I don't like the look of that. So I'm going to use the brake as a clamp with a rubber mallet to form my pieces. So I already got one set up. Using a rubber mallet, I'm going to bend that over. Take my piece out, flip it. And line my dimension up. this piece, only difference, that piece, my lines I couldn't see, they were on the bottom. This piece, I'm going to see my lines, they're on the top. Then I know I'm pouring water like that. Again, you couldn't lay this out as shown, an opposite as shown, and all your parts will form the same. So I just have to now finish forming the rest of the pieces. I could use a hand bar folder or flange pliers. I'm going to use flange pliers. I'm going to use locking style, vice grip style. That way I can clamp it onto my dimension, bend my 90-degree angles. And I'm going to do that for both pieces, both ends. So that will be completely formed. Same exact thing to my other piece. Again, I'm doing the same steps to each piece. Of course, if I had 100 offsets to make, I probably wouldn't be doing that. I'd probably be doing all one step on all of them, and then the next step, depending on timeline and all that stuff. So there are my form sheets. So now using my sheet, for my angle, I have my up and my down. So all I'm bending them is that angle. So using the box of Pittsburgh, then when I clamp on a Pittsburgh, I want to make sure I adjust my clamp pressure so I'm not squishing my Pittsburgh, I'm just clamping my piece, holding my piece in place. So here's my offset, again, about a 20-25 angle. If I overbend, it's okay a little bit, but I can just take that out, that's not bad. Now I'm going to do my down bend. My down bend, all I have to do is line up my notches. I don't have to transfer anything, I just have to line up my notches to do my down bend. When I do that bend, when I come up with the break, I want this piece to sort of be parallel to the floor. That'll tell me my two bends are right about the same. Right? Repeat process on my other piece, and whether it's habit or just what I always do my up bend first. I see where it says up, I bend the up, now I know my other bend is down, I don't want to see the right. Line up my notch, again bend, so my bend is about parallel, my angle is about parallel. And that pretty much matches my pieces. Okay, so last step is assembly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one cheek and the wrapper, and you want to start on one end or the corner and work your way end to end. I'm going to hammer over a little bit. In place. So I have one cheek, one wrapper. I'm going to put the other wrapper. And if you have to, you can use a seam setter. Make sure my ends are lined up. Before I complete the hammering, I want to make sure my ends line up. I got cheek with 2 wrappers, and I can just flip it over and repeat the process. All my parts together, my ends line up, now I can just finish my hammering. All hammered together. There's my completed Ogee offset. Now again, depending on what we're doing, slip and drive cleats, PDC, would depend on what I would do at the ends of my duct.